Let me guess, you've said yes when you didn't want to. Not because you had the time. Not because you had the energy. But because saying no made you feel like a bad person. If that sounds familiar, you're not alone. So many women, especially those of us who've spent decades caring for others, carry this deep, quiet guilt. Like we owe people our time, our energy, our peace. Even when we're running on empty. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about why saying no feels so heavy, and why it shouldn't. Because here's the truth, feeling guilty doesn't mean you did something wrong. It just means you were taught to believe that your needs should come last. And for many of us, that message was planted early. Maybe you grew up in a family where being good meant being quiet. Being helpful. Not making waves. Maybe you were told things like don't be selfish, or just do it to keep the peace. So now, even as a grown woman, even after 60, saying no still triggers that old fear. That voice in your head that whispers, you're disappointing someone. You're being difficult. They won't love you if you say no. But here's what I want you to hear, really hear. Saying no isn't selfish. It's self-respect. You're not being mean. You're being honest. Let's take an example I've heard over and over from women I've spoken with. A grown child calls, needing help, again. Maybe it's money. Maybe it's babysitting. Maybe it's just emotional support you don't have to give right now. You feel torn. You love them. Of course you do. But you also feel drained. You've done so much, for so long. And when you even think about saying no, guilt floods in. What kind of mother says no? I should be there. I always have been. But what if the real question is, what kind of mother also needs to rest? What kind of woman also deserves space, peace, and boundaries? The answer is, all of us. Here's another one, maybe it's not your kids. Maybe it's your partner. Or a friend. Or someone at work who always leans on you because you're so good at handling things. They don't mean harm. But they expect you to always say yes. Because you always have. And when you finally draw the line, when you finally say, I can't do this today, they act surprised. Or worse, disappointed. And that disappointment? It hurts. It taps straight into that guilt. But I want to gently remind you, their disappointment is not your responsibility. Your job is not to keep everyone else happy while you fall apart inside. Your job is to take care of you, too. And I know that can feel so foreign, especially for women over 60. You've spent a lifetime putting others first. Maybe you were a caregiver. A teacher. A nurse. A mother. A partner. Maybe you learned to survive by making yourself small. But now? Now it's time to take up space. Now it's time to stop apologizing for having limits. Saying no doesn't mean you don't care. It means you finally care about yourself too. Let's sit with that for a moment. And in the next part, we'll gently look at what to do when the guilt kicks in, how to breathe through it, and how to hold your no with grace, even when it's uncomfortable. Because I promise you, it gets easier. You are not wrong for needing space. You are not selfish for wanting peace. You are allowed to say no, and still be a good, kind, deeply loving woman. Let's talk about what happens after you say no. That wave of guilt? That tightness in your chest? The urge to call them back and say, okay, fine, I'll do it? Yeah. That moment is where so many women backpedal. Because the guilt feels louder than your own needs. And because for years, maybe decades, your role has been to fix, to give, to be there, no matter what. But here's the truth, guilt is not a signal that you're doing something wrong. It's often just a sign that you're doing something new. And new things feel uncomfortable. Especially when they challenge old patterns. Especially when those patterns were built around keeping everyone else comfortable. Let me give you an example. I once spoke with a woman named Diane, 67, retired teacher, 2 adult daughters. One of them constantly leaned on her for emotional support. Long phone calls, dropping by unannounced, venting for hours about her life, with very little interest in how Diane was doing. Diane finally decided to set a small boundary. She said, "I love you, but I can't talk right now. I'm resting." The reaction? Silence. Then, a guilt trip. "Oh. Okay. I guess I'll just deal with it on my own." That moment nearly broke Diane. She told me, "I felt like a bad mother." But here's what I reminded her, and what I want to remind you. Your job is not to be endlessly available. Your job is to be whole. And the people who truly love you? They'll learn to honor your boundaries, even if it takes time. So what do you do in that moment, when the guilt creeps in? Here's something simple you can say to yourself, quietly, gently. It's okay to choose me. It's okay to need space. This doesn't make me unkind, it makes me human. If someone pushes back when you say no, you don't have to defend or explain or over-apologize. You can simply say, "I wish I could, but I can't right now." Or, "I love you, and I need to take care of myself today." That's it. That's enough. You don't owe anyone a detailed explanation for your limits. And here's another thing, when someone responds to your boundary with guilt, manipulation, or coldness, it's not proof that your boundary was wrong. It's just proof that they were used to crossing it. That's not on you. You may be surprised how many people are only comfortable with you when you're saying yes. But guess what? You don't need that kind of love. You need the kind that respects your no. You may lose a few fair-weather relationships when you start honoring your own needs. But you'll gain something so much more powerful: peace. And self-respect. And the quiet strength of finally living in a way that honors you. I know it's not easy. Especially when you've been trained, by family, by partners, by church, by culture, to believe that your worth is in what you give. But I want to say this plainly, and with love. You are not just a caregiver. You are not just a helper. You are not just a source of support for everyone else's life. You are you. And that is enough. So next time you say no, and guilt knocks on the door, pause and breathe. Picture the younger version of yourself, the woman who was always saying yes, always overextending, always exhausted. Now picture the version of you who is calm. Clear. Gentle but firm. That's who you're becoming. That's who you already are, deep down. You don't need to earn rest. You don't need to justify peace. And saying no? That's not you being selfish. That's you finally being honest. In the next part, we'll talk about how to stay strong when people don't take your no well. When they get upset. Or distant. Or even mean. Because even then, especially then, you still deserve boundaries. And you're allowed to keep them, without guilt. Let's talk about the hard part. When people don't take your no well. You say, "I can't help this weekend," and suddenly, silence. You decline a request, and now they're cold. Distant. Maybe even angry. Or they come back with that familiar line. "Well, I guess I'll just figure it out on my own." And just like that, you feel like the bad guy. Again. Here's what I want you to hear with your whole heart. Their reaction doesn't mean you did something wrong. It means you're finally doing something different. You're breaking an old pattern. And people who benefited from that pattern? They will resist it. Sometimes in very subtle, guilt-laced ways. But their discomfort is not your responsibility to fix. You are not being mean. You are not being dramatic. You are drawing a line so you don't lose yourself. I know this isn't easy, especially when it's someone close. A partner who used to expect everything to revolve around their moods. A grown child who leans on you emotionally, even when you're hurting yourself. A coworker or sibling who's used to you always picking up the slack. But here's a truth that might help. If your yes has always been automatic, your no will feel like betrayal, not just to them, but even to you at first. You'll second-guess yourself. You'll lie awake replaying the conversation. You'll wonder, did I say it too harshly, or maybe I should have just done it this once? That's okay. That's part of unlearning. But don't let that momentary discomfort stop you from honoring what you need. Because the only thing worse than disappointing someone else is betraying yourself over and over again. And if someone truly loves you, they will learn to love the version of you who says no when she needs to. The version of you who rests. Who doesn't explain her boundaries over and over, hoping for permission. Who trusts herself. You don't have to earn that. You're allowed to just be. So the next time guilt creeps in after you say no, try this. Put your hand on your heart. Take a slow breath. And gently say to yourself, I didn't hurt anyone. I just honored my needs. Then, let that sit. Let yourself feel the strength in that. It won't feel natural at first. Especially if you've spent most of your life being the fixer, the peacemaker, the dependable one. But here's the gift of this stage in your life. You've done enough. You've given enough. And now, you get to choose peace. Peace that comes from no longer abandoning yourself just to keep others comfortable. Peace that comes from boundaries that don't have to come with a speech. Peace that comes from knowing that people who truly value you will learn how to love you with limits. Because here's the bottom line. Saying no isn't rejection. It's protection of your energy, your time, and your heart. And no, it's not too late to learn this. You're not too old. You're not too much. You are wise. You are worthy. And you are allowed to take up space. So if this spoke to you, let me know in the comments. Just a simple "that's me" is enough. Because I promise, you are not alone in this. And from here forward, you don't have to carry that guilt anymore. You get to put it down. You get to rest. You get to live. You've earned that. And you are so deeply worthy of it.